Let me read to you a passage from the 14th chapter of St. John's Gospel, verses 7 to 14. It's the Gospel for Saturday after the fourth Sunday of Easter. St. John writes, Jesus said to his disciples, "If you really knew me, you would know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." Philip said, "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." Jesus answered, "Do you not know me, Philip, even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you are not just my own. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, or at least believe on the evidence of the miracles themselves. I tell you the truth, anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. He will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father, and I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Son may bring glory to the Father. You may ask for anything in my name, and I will do it." That's from John chapter 14, verse 7 to 14. It prompts thoughts on the primacy of Christ. What do I mean? Well, in an ABC television debate in Australia, April 2012, between the crusading atheist Richard Dawkins and Cardinal George Pell, Dawkins was asked by the audience how it came about that from nothing there occurred the Big Bang, said by scientists to be the physical beginning of the universe. He admitted that this was a tremendous problem, but referred to work of another scientist who has been proposing a mechanism prior to the Big Bang. But, as the Cardinal pointed out, that prior mechanism was not nothing. So the problem remains, and the question awaits its answer. If there is a beginning to the universe, Big Bang or something else, whence came that physical beginning, when prior to it there was nothing? The question could be put this way: why is there not nothing? There is a further question still. Why is the world structured as it is, quite apart from the question of why it is anyway? Let us dwell on that second question from a particular angle, and starting a little distance from it. Richard Dawkins and many of his scientific and philosophical ilk allow only for empirical tests as the criterion of objective perception and truth. That is, something may be taken as true if you observe and test it empirically, and if your reflection on it proceeds within the confines of that empirical data. Whatever of its philosophical narrowness, at least this epistemological assumption highlights one important feature of the structure of man. He knows things in the first instance by observation and sense. He is in no way limited to this, but broadly he starts the process of knowing reality by the use of his senses. He sees things, he hears them, he touches them, he smells and tastes. With this beginning, a vast process of knowledge is developed that goes far beyond its beginnings. He can even arrive at a degree of knowledge of the unseen creator of the universe. The danger is that he can rest at knowledge attained directly by his senses. He can sink into the blindness of regarding a sense object as divine, in idolatry, or he can sink into the blindness of thinking that there is no God because he cannot be seen or tested empirically, as in atheism. They are the dangers, and we see in the history of divine revelation the constant demands of the prophets to put away all idols and images, and implicitly all blatant agnosticism or atheism. But this danger ought not diminish our appreciation of the way God has made us. We are made, we read in the book of Genesis, in his image and likeness. We are able to know, to judge, to choose, and to decide. We are given our senses to know reality and our reason to reflect on what we perceive with a view to decisions. Our senses, encompassing the powers of sight, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting, are most precious, and it is tragic if one of them is lost. Clearly, God means us to come to know him, the highest knowledge, by means of them. For instance, we know the God of revelation by faith, but as St. Paul writes, this involves hearing a preacher, hearing one sent to bear witness. To believe we must hear, and with the aid of grace we reflect on what we hear. I raised the question of why there is not nothing. I also posed the question of why God made man as he is, to know things as he does, in the first instance by means of his senses. I suggest that ultimately it reflects the divine plan to make the pinnacle of all reality a physical reality, the incarnate Word. St. John writes that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. We saw his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father. John chapter 1 verse 18. Commonly we view the incarnation as something of a divine afterthought. That is to say, because of original sin and the horrible calamity it wreaked in man and the cosmos, God decided out of his infinite love to send his divine Son to redeem the world from sin. The incarnation is the divine remedy for sin. Implicitly, had not our first parents done their dirty deed, there would not have been the incarnation, the atonement, and all that issued from the work of Jesus Christ. But this is not the only view of the matter. There is another view, and I myself am attracted to it. It holds that the purpose of creation is the incarnation. The incarnation is the fulfillment of God's eternal longing to become human, a brother to his creatures. He forever wished to share his divine life with us, his children, and as our brother. The great philosopher and theologian, Blessed John Duns Scotus, who lived from 1266 to 1308, boldly proclaimed and defended the primacy of the incarnation. The incarnation came first. It was not dependent on, nor occasioned by, anything of man, such as his sin. The incarnate Word is the reason for creation. I take the point further and propose that we are made in view of the incarnation. We are so structured with our powers of sight, hearing, feeling, and sense in order, ultimately, to look on and hear about the incarnate Word, who is the image of the unseen God. Ultimately, that is why we are as we are. We and all of creation exist, and exist in the way we do, in view of the incarnation, which is to say, so as to gaze on and hear and love and serve the Word made flesh among us. We are able, or will be able, to say, we saw his glory. All this brings us to our gospel that I read earlier, in which our Lord says to his disciples, anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? John chapter 14 verse 7 to 14. The summit of the universe is Jesus Christ, and we, placed by God in the world as its steward and master, are made in such a way as to see, hear, and know him. Let us do this then.